Okay, nice to see everyone. Um, okay. Greetings from Govardhan. It's been quite a hectic day. I'm developing this ashram. I only have one apartment finished on this side, and we have a private guest house that my friends run and never run out. And it's very nice, right next to me. But it's great, guests come. Guest comes. And we really show them a good time. Yesterday, Vikram was helping me, very helpful. He took two devotees and their little child, who's wonderful and like 5 years old, took to a place called Biharvan, which, if you've been with Tatiastan, this is like thousands of acres of untouched Braj land and forest with thousands of cows and peacocks and then there's a mantra rock band, and the lady is kind of in many ways a faithful disciple. So she came with her husband and someone else, and they were staying in the room. And I took them this morning they came and chanted japa with me, and then I took them to Govinda Kund, which is one of the incredible towns around Govardhan Hill, Govinda Kund and Punchuri, and then Jatipura, Govardhan town, Radha Kund. Those are kind of like the towns. And Govinda Kund is so beautiful, and it's like a sadhu village. And I hadn't seen this one sadhu for about 2 years. He had such a beautiful smile, Mukunda. So we came in and I started leading kirtan. He took out his drum, and then I was looking for this other ashram called Manohar Baba Ashram, where for centuries these Siddha Mahatmas used to do their bhajan. And it's still so secluded. But I couldn't find it. And I walked into the wrong place, and I found out they have this huge Goshala. We had to walk through all this cow dung and cows and to the back door. And then we went in there and we did some kirtan. And then they went to a place called Chandra Sarovara, where Krishna had the rasa dance in this time of the year. So it's been quite busy with also the construction going on, which is basically renovating these buildings, these 3 attached houses that have been given to me, and they're quite beautifully done. So, the prasadam is absolutely off the charts. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm eating very little, but I met these people who, before Radha Kund, but in the fields, they have this little complex, and they distribute prasadam. Not distribute, it's gourmet. It's the highest quality. And you can say 200 people, 500 people, and they'll be there. It's so well organized, very high-end brahmacharis and grihastas, and so well organized. And I become very, very close with them. At our retreat, they would bring the prasadam in the evening. They're just so. And if you want, yesterday, I guess for the guests that came here, we brought them some lunch from there. Incredible gourmet, so it's amazing. And the temple here has a cook, which is unparalleled. I'm talking about food. I guess I'm pretty spaced out today, but the temple has a cook now. That's quite, wow. So, it's Giriraj, and Giriraj has that potency of eating, and it's quite amazing. Quite amazing experience here. Okay, now as part of this kind of spiritual passion I've been in, I have been giving class every night, and I've been giving it on one of my favorite books, Follow the Angels by Bhakti Rakshaka Sridhar Maharaj, Prabhupada's godbrother. Prabhupada, they lived together, and they were studying Bhagavad Gita before Prabhupada started the mission. So I'll just read from a section, and a few people were coming in the evening. And I have my plan. I got my finger on the pulse. My plan is still to go to Moscow. I haven't got a visa yet, so I'll see. And then on to America for a couple of days, and then on to Colombia for about a month. So let's start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timirandasya Garanjana Shalakaya. Taksuranmulatam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam yena Bhutale. Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhaktavinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I should explain to you a little bit about Bhakti Rakshaka Sridhar Maharaj. He was very educated from a very high-end Brahmin family, and became a very, very faithful and humble devotee. And he had an incredible ability to conceptualize and express the philosophy. I know my godbrother Pradyumna Prabhu, I'm very close with him. He was Prabhupada's Sanskrit Pandit. Prabhupada called him Panditji. Just a depth of conceptualizing, understanding, and expressing philosophy. So I'm not doing the, excuse me, I have to explain to you. Somehow I lost my place in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, and it's a, what is it? I don't know, where it's on my Kindle. But it's an old kind of version with no way to find out how and where you're going. And I couldn't find my place. So I'll do that for the next time. But so I'm switching to this. So here, I'll read. Responsible service can help us avoid falling prey to lust, anger, and other enemies of devotion. So all these unwanted qualities that come generally by our karma, and they come, and desires come, and sometimes they're more intense, sometimes they're less intense. So it happens when they come, if you entertain them, the initial impression that caused them remains, plus another impression comes. And then you become entangled further. But if you can neglect them, then your mind becomes cleansed. So, and that's called tapasya. What tapasya is, it's not anything arduous. Tapasya is, despite the irrational impulses of the mind and senses, you engage in devotional service, despite the irrational impulses of the mind and senses. So tapasya is just avoiding that. And it doesn't mean the kind of tapasya that you have to put yourself in those kind of situations to challenge yourself. Although there's an element of there, but not in devotional service. You do your service. And within your service, there's austerity. Whatever service you do. And what's that austerity? That it's not everything you wanted to do. There are challenges that come. But when the mind is occupied in that way by responsible service, then it's much easier to neglect those things and you become purified. And there's a verse in Bhagavad Gita that exemplifies that really perfectly. Yesham twantakatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajanti mam dridhabrataha. Yesham twantakatam papam, sin, twantakatam. It's unlimited. What's coming out of us? We're experiencing it now. What comes out of us. But when you neglect it, because you have service, because you're in the association of people that support you, when you neglect it, you gradually become purified, and then bhajanti mam dridha, you become free from dualities, bhajanti mam dridhabrata. And then you can become dridhabrata, very firm in the kind of chanting I'm doing now. There's no way I could have done that when I began. It was just too much coming, too much passion, too much ignorance, and with that, everything else. But by a life of service, and I'm still going. I'm still trying to become purified. But here's just such a beautiful point. Responsible service. It could be home deities. It could be organizing a program. It can be some mission that you have. But that service, it was interesting. I gave that class, and the next day, I gave that class, and the next day, these new people came. And they have a band called the Shanti People. And the lady is my disciple. They're mantra rock stars kind of in India. They're from Russia and Ukraine, but they travel, but there's no money there at all. But in India, they do these things. It's kind of like parties, and they get a couple of thousand people. And from 4 or 5 years ago, when they think you had to get jobs, now they don't worry about money. So they came to see me, and she's a beautiful kirtan leader, because not only does she do this mantra thing, but she, studied in Vrindavan, actually, ragas and things like that, which she said now she only uses 2 notes. So people came, and I said, we'll just wait for her to come to start, because we'll start with kirtan. And then I sent Vikram, find out what's going on. It's already 10 or 15. He goes, she's putting on her sari and she hasn't done it for a while. So then one of the person who's been coming to the class said, yeah, just see, responsible service. And then his wife said, what kind of responsible service is that? But the concept of the idea was because she was coming to see her teacher, she was putting on a sari, completely absorbed. And I'm not recommending one type of devotional dress. It's probably the first time in a year she's done that. But the idea is when the mind gets absorbed, that's why I have to say that for grihastas, festivals are very, very important because they're absorbed. I remember at my Vyas Puja, some of you came the night before, and flower garlands and things. It's such an absorption, a festival. Janmashtami, whatever, a festival, organize it, it just becomes absorbing. So he says, I'll read it. Responsible service can help us avoid falling prey to lust, anger, and other enemies of devotion. Foremost among our protectors is faith, Shraddha. So it begins with faith, and I've explained this many times, that I give two sentences, one by a Christian apologist and one by Prabhupada. I put them together and you really understand what faith is. The Christian apologist said, trust by experience. In other words, you're going forward, you're moving forward, and you trust. Why? Based on an experience. That experience is the Bhakti Lata Bij, the seed of devotion. Some experience came to you that convinced you. And the second part is what Prabhupada said, faith means unflinching trust in something sublime that can convince you that there's sublimity here. I should move for this. And why do you have that trust that this bhakti is sublime? Because there's some kind of experience, last life and this life. So it all begins with that. And that's considered the greatest fortune to have that in your heart. Brahmanda Brahmate Konya Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Pasadi Pai. Bhagyavan Jeev, a fortunate living entity. Wandering by the mercy of Guru and Krishna gets the Bhakti Lata Bij. And in fact, what I'm doing here in Govardhan, which is it's kind of a transcendental headache, but what I'm doing in Govardhan is specifically for that reason, to give people experience. I see Joe Cayley's here, life-changing for him and his family. Because that constant, that absorption, that experience, now he's really determined because he has a goal. That feeling that I had, I really want to get, I want to perfect it. So it all begins. Next comes Sadhu Sangha, association with pure devotees. So once that faith is in the heart, God sees that faith. I also describe that faith as humility, because it's the recognition that there's something higher than my desires and opinions. And that people confuse surrender as something by force. No, what surrender is humility. I want the truth and I want to follow the truth, and I don't have the truth. And what's the proof I don't have the truth? Look at my consciousness, look at my life. I want it. So when God sees that, then Sadhu Sangha. Sadhu Sangha comes and yeah. And God makes that arrangement. He may put you on, I forgot what the 3 train, and you wind up, I got that right, in Union Square, and there's the Harinam party, and then it's God is sending you Sadhu Sangha. And bhajana kriya, deep engagement in the duties prescribed by the divine master. It says in the Nectar of Devotion, the spiritual master is expert in engaging the disciple in devotional service. It says that the main principle of bhakti, that the main rule is to remember Krishna. The main regulation is don't forget Krishna. And we can just imagine Prabhupada's expertise as all these drug, sex, whatever their life was, crazed people, all of a sudden give this up and come to the movement, but the passion is still there within them. And Prabhupada had a mission that engaged them. And even if they couldn't maintain that, it was an experience. And that experience remains embedded in the heart. And one purport in the Bhagavatam is called Rasa Graha. This feeling is in the heart. And to the extent that even if someone leaves completely and doing the same thing as a materialist, he's never the same. And we recognize that because we realize maybe some offenses or something are covering it, and he's away. And once that reaction is there, that will come up again. Deep engagement is necessary, especially for the mind, not merely the body. So when we do activities of devotion, it's not just engaging our body, it's engaging our mind. And mental engagement can be attained only by responsibility. So it's so important. Some responsible service is given to the disciple. We feel the weight and it occupies our thoughts. We cannot but think about it. The mind is engaged there, surely. So he's speaking. He was in the temple at the Gaudiya Math, in the mission of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. And I think, nothing's perfect, but what ISKCON does is provide a lot of engagement for people. And I also think that's in New York City, that's the wonder of Ram Roy's Harinam. It gives engagement for anyone. It's right there sitting. So it's very purifying. Thus, the mind gets no chance to dwell on lower things. This is the beauty of deep engagement and responsible service. In the practical sense, that helps us a great deal. Then association and scriptures will be of substantial benefit to us as service. So it's talking one verse in Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidi paripatena pariprashnena seva upadeshanti te jnanam. Just approach a spiritual master, Tadvidi paripatena, and you surrender to the truth. It's not just a person, it's you're looking for the truth and you're looking for someone who represents the truth. Authority is not just someone who's in charge. Authority is the weight of knowledge in whatever it is. Whether you're learning music, whether you're learning cooking, whether you're learning car mechanics, whatever it is. There's a logos, there's a way of doing things, and there's people who know that. And if that's your goal, then you surrender to the truth about how to do that. And then the scriptures are substantial benefit. It's I told this story, but I have my limited amount of stories, but I think they have dynamicism if they relate to a new point. So he's talking about the relationship between service, and then the scriptures will be beneficial. And I always remember that one thing where I had my Puri Yatra, and before it became so established, in Ishapanti, it was at the swimming hotel. And we, by the swimming pool, we had a little spot where we'd have classes. And this great humble saint, most learned Vaishnava in the world on Gaudiya Vaishnava, he was chairman of the Sanskrit department at Utkal University, but also he was most learned Vaishnava on the history of Lord Chaitanya and Orissa. And he was a Bhava Bhakta. I mean, he really had some devotion, but he would call me up and wanting to come to my festival. And, we'd give him a room, and I'd try to get him to speak, and he often wouldn't want to speak. He would sit in my classes. So I got him to speak one day, and I told him that, that the students here are from the Sanskrit school of Gopi Pranadhana, Prabhupada's main translator after he left. So he took note of that, and he started in class. He looked at them and he says, "Who knows Shastra? Who is Shastragya?" And then with such a powerful voice, he said, "One who practices. One who practices." So, Grihastas usually have deities and services. I even have my Giriraj here and trying to feed him as much as possible. And I think there's two prayers in the heart, which Krishna will see and Krishna will fulfill. Because Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kamam. Nityo Nityanam, Nityo, there's one Supreme Eternal. Nityanam, there's many other Supreme Eternals. Chaitanas, there's one Supreme Life Force. Chaitanas Chaitanas, Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam. And there's many living. Nityo Nityanam Chaitana Eko Bahunam, the one to the many. Yo Vidadati, he satisfies the desires. He satisfies the whole material world is to satisfy your desire to be not a devotee. When you don't want to be a devotee, God puts you in the illusion that you're not. So he fulfills those desires, and he will respond to deep, sincere prayers in the heart for service and sadhu sangha. For service and sadhu sangha. They will come and peep and will step back when they discover that we're deeply engaged. So these material qualities, lust, anger, greed, they'll kind of look, oh, I'll go away now. This person's too busy. I remember one of my god sisters left the movement, and you can't blame her at all. Very difficult. One of Prabhupada's most senior devotees, and then the movement is growing, and somehow or other. And she somehow got HIV. And this is maybe 20, 30 years ago, and she's still so active, incredibly active. And Radha, I mentioned because one time I visited her center she had a place in Cincinnati in that area, and I went there, and she cooked breakfast, and she this, and she drove me, and this. And I was speaking to Radhanath Swami. He said, she's too busy to die. She's too busy to die. So it's like that. And, we have our duties in the world also. Duty means responsibilities. Responsibilities means the things we should do. And it's connected to Krishna in that way. It may be our karma to have to. One very nice Indian lady comes to my class, and she's in Govardhan very often, and she's from Gurgaon, near Delhi. And she rents a place in Braj Vasundar. And she's very advanced. In fact, every night when my class, she comes and she cooks and brings something for me. I can only take a little of it, but I have to say, it's really, so she cooks. She cooks. And so today she came and she brought it. I was out in my courtyard, but the couple that was here, the three people who were here, they left. And the other couple and their daughter that coming to my class, Vikram took them to Barsana. So I said, there'll be no class today, but you could have any question. And she described her how deep and spiritually she's getting. And on one side, she feels like such devotion. She really has something, an extraordinary person. But she's married and she has two daughters that are not married. She's trying to get her daughters married, and she's Indian, and they agreed to arrange things. And she went through hundreds and hundreds of charts and trying to find person. And because of her Punjabi background, hardly any of the people are vegetarians, and her daughter insists on that. And so I was talking to her about that, and she was trying to figure it out. And I said, Tate nukampam susavikshamano. Things sometimes come that are not by God's grace, that are, it's by his grace for our purification. And what Jiva Goswami says, in those times, we bow our head and thank Krishna. We bow our head and we thank Krishna, because everything that's coming to us is for us. So that's also responsibility. So we have no time to give attention to lust and anger. We cannot be enticed. In this way, they will have to retreat. Then if they return once, twice, thrice, or more, we not spare any attention for them. We'll be deeply engaged in seva. Seva, service, should not be merely physical. There is a mental seva, and only responsibility can capture the mind. In responsibility, the mind is compelled to think on the matter. Otherwise, the mind may be free to wander hither and thither, even while the body is apparently engaged. So engage the mind in deep service, responsible service. The opportunities come, we just have to take it. And we know, and it's not disconnected to our chanting. It's not disconnected to our chanting, because the mind is more pure, and then it's easier to focus. What is necessary is the dissolution of the separate interest activity. It's so nice, separate interest activity. It's just like a symphony. Separate interests causes harm. It doesn't help us either. Of team, separate interests cause harm. So there's a universal team. It's God's team. And there is an interest. Swartakatam. Nate Vidu, Swartakatam hi Vishnu. This is Nate Vidu. They do not know. Swarta, own, artha, value, interest, gatim, that their own interest is God. Because God is Ishvara. Ish means the center, Vara means the circumference. The thing that everything is connected to. And Prabhupada said, when you have that kind of harmony, everything is beautiful and blissful. You know, I have my retreats. My focus is to create community initially. And how do we create community? That we create an environment where everyone is served better than they can serve themselves. And then what happens in such a community, with the common interest becomes greater than the individual interest. And it's the separate interest that always causes disturbance for ourselves and others. We don't like those people that enter into our world with separate interest, selfish interest. It always ruins everything. It ruins things in family, it ruins things in community. And universally, you can't ruin things except ourselves. So and the reason community is so important, not that you have to live in a community, that's also wonderful, but being in a spiritual community that serves you nicely and that you feel is because you can let down your defenses. And your defenses, which in the world you have, it's the world of exploitation. Boy, do you have to be on guard. But sometimes that type of being on guard also creates a barrier to opening your heart to Krishna. And it's nice to be in an environment where you can be vulnerable, but people are for your benefit. Because in that type of community, the holy name enters into the heart very easily. That's what Sankirtan. Jiva Goswami says, complete kirtan, kirtan with others. Sankirtan is better than kirtan by yourself because it creates special feelings of bliss. And what are those special feelings of bliss? Because in real Sankirtan, Trinada pi, Sanichena, Torora pi, Sahishnana, Amanina, Madina, Kirtani is in real Kirtan. It's like humble than a blade of grass. And Pradyumna, my godbrother, he explained very nicely that if you have a lawn, it may be very, very beautiful, a green lawn, but no individual piece of grass stands out. Look at me. But it's contributing to a greater effect. So in real kirtan, no one is an entertainer. It's all about the overall community and the benefit and that offering to God. Jamuna Devi, she liked, Akinchana Krishna once visited Vancouver. He was with the summer tour, of whatever, and he visited. And when he visited, he played kirtan, and Jamuna loved it because, and she said, where did you get it? He picked up this rag in Vrindavan. So she had some affection for him. And then when she came to Vrindavan, he came to see her. And she said, she looked at him and said, don't become an entertainer. Don't become an entertainer. So that's separate interest. And, you know, and the common interest, it doesn't mean your desires are not fulfilled. When you say that there's something higher than our opinions and desires, and that's the truth. So, many of our opinions and many of our desires can be the truth, but not because there are opinions and desires, but because they're the truth. The truth will decide. And that truth, that spiritual community, that spiritual knowledge, that logos, that is very cognizant of our interests and our desires and our needs more than we can of ourselves. And when they're fulfilled in that way, you also get the benefit of feeling love. So when I organize a festival, we really try to focus that the person, everything is taken care of. When we had our retreat here, yeah, I mean, first thing I did is I purchased new instruments, a new harmonium, a new mridanga. I purchased, because it was still the winter, thermoses for everyone. And the guest house, let there be light. I was running on the inverter. And the guest house, they didn't have heaters because most of the year it's hot. So we also bought heaters. And, you know, in our program, we bought these big huge metal thermoses with tea. So, you know, everybody get very healthy. There was always in the back of the kirtan hot teas and arranging for their PCR test before they leave. And so many things. And it's not. Therefore, you see, wow, my interest is being served better than I can struggle to serve it myself, and I'm getting love. Then one will merge into the all venerable, all respectful world, no connection with the lower things. We are servants of the servant of the servant. We are the lowest, all other are higher. We shall come into contact with all higher substance, and the lower substance of concoction will vanish for all time. So that's what happens when separate interest is given up. You merge not your identity, but you become one with a common interest. And in rasa theory, that's how rasa is experienced. Because when an audience watches a drama which is perfectly composed and they're qualified, then the emotion that was communicated, everybody feels, but there's a sense of unity that everyone is feeling the same thing. And it kind of creates a oneness, not a merging of identity, but a oneness of unity and community that helps you translate the limited concept of I. The limited concept of I is I am the center, and my desires are the truth. So, it is Sat Chidananda, Sat, eternal existence, Chit, all consciousness, all soul, all subjective, and Anandam, no anxiety. The general flow is irresistible and automatic, So there's no possibility of any suffering or pain, because all suffering is giving up attachments. And when your attachment is to God and it can be fulfilled and it's flowing through you without you having to control and get it and fearful of losing it. I remember one sadhu, Satchidananda Swami, was chanting up in Varsana on Mankutir on the hill, and one mystic yogi, Vaishnav, was there. And he walked by him and said, "Are you chanting the name, or is the name chanting you?" I know one very, very good friend. He hasn't come for 2-3 years, but he has a house here. And he's a very, very substantial devotee who's preached Krishna consciousness all over the world. But he has a very profound depth of devotion. And he's so sick that he doesn't sleep all the time, but he can only get out of his bed for about 4 or 5 hours a day. And then there's total exhaustion. And then he had neuralgia, which is nerves in your face. And then he had them operated. It didn't work. But his bhajan was even better, because he had that connection where it's beyond one's effort. It's something that is Goloka Premadan, Harinam, it's descending from Krishna. So despite all the pain, it was irresistible. Okay, here it says, no possibility of any suffering or pain. Because you merge into that. That is the spontaneous flow of blissfulness. We shall come to live in that plane. Rather, Yogamaya, higher, superior, and affectionate power maintains us. She will capture us and utilize us in the service of the mysterious Krishna. So that somehow or other was fun, despite losing my place. Maybe I even shift to this because it's such a nice, but I started that so long ago, a couple of years now. I'm going to see how much there is. And I also want it to change a little bit so I could see what philosophical content there is. So Jamuna Jaya, are you still there? What point did you take from the class? What reflection?
Thank you, Raj. Thank you so much. This is a wonderful class. I love the idea of that lust, anger, and greed would come and they'd see you so busy with service, it would go, never mind, we're not coming in. I love picturing them as little gremlins and seeing you involved and going, oh, I'll see you later. So
it said 2, 3, 4 times, then they become tired.
Then they leave you alone.
That's a nice one, yeah. Anybody else share a reflection or have a question? Okay, a few people say hello.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Tota Gopinath here.
Hi, Bo.
Good to hear from you.
Yeah, that Monday we'll have to go up to the Revals.
Okay.
Before I go to Columbia. And we'll have a nice program at Jai Shri Radhe. So that's going to be really fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Sounds great.
Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for class. It's Gloria.
Wow. We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little over a month away. Spend some time in Colombia.
It's wonderful. We are waiting for you.
Oh, great. Looking forward to seeing you. Good.
Great.
Good. Who else?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Saul Govinda. Thank you for class.
Hey, Haribo.
Haribo.
Okay. Let's see when I get back. I'll be back for a short while, then I'll come back and stay for the summer. Although I do have this idea that maybe go to Govardhan for Shravan. Just because to finish up the work here and, once and for all. Yeah.
That would be nice.
Okay. Yeah, anybody else?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Narmasaki here.
Did you apply?
Yes, I did, and I'm waiting for them. They said as soon as they get the passport, they will call me.
How long do they estimate?
Between 1 week or 10 days.
Okay, anyway, even if you hopefully you'll be there at the same time as everyone else. If not, a few days after, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. There's also really one really nice lady coming from America. Just by coincidence, not coincidence, but Raghunath asked me. This very nice lady, and I really admire her. She was a nuclear engineer.
Wow.
And she had contracts to build nuclear submarines. Very sober lady, very practical lady. And she gave it all, she got married and she gave it all up to manage Raghunath and the wisdom of the sages and the Super Soul Farm and many things. And Raghunath joked to me that he said, she's finding it more difficult to manage me than to build nuclear submarines. But she's coming, so we really want to serve her. She's a very, very nice lady, very sober, very serious. I hope you're here. You could give her some company. That would be nice. So, okay.
I also admire that you said it is very good to be as much as busy that you don't have time to die. Busy in service.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, we will pray for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Gurudev. Surya Radhika here.
Okay.
Thanks for the class.
Where is Yavet Sundari?
Not yet. I'm back here.
I see her name there.
I'm here, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, of course your mother is there. She's fixed now. Okay, Yavet Sundari. Everyone congratulate Yavet Sundari. She took initiation in Govardhan. It was a very auspicious thing. I see you somehow you've maintained the bliss. That's pretty good.
You. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Yeah,
wait, you're still in Delhi, right?
Yeah, I'm still in Delhi. I'm going on Friday, Maharaj.
Oh, okay. You're still in Delhi, so you're getting nice treatment there. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's
Okay.
very good. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to head out now. Thank you all. I look at the list, so I know everybody who has attended. So, okay. Vanshakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bheva Japatitanam.